The story opens with a sharp, focused FBI special agent named John arriving at a prestigious museum in Rome. He wasn't there as a tourist. He had come on a mission. His intel suggested that a notorious international thief, Nolan Booth, was planning a heist. The target? A priceless golden egg with immense historical value. John immediately warned the museum director about the impending theft. But instead of taking his warning seriously, the director brushed him off. He had full faith in the museum's cutting-edge security systems and refused to believe that anyone could break through them. John, however, didn't let it go. He began a personal inspection of the exhibit. That's when he made a discovery that stunned everyone present. Upon closely examining the egg, John's instincts told him something was off. The texture, the weight, it just didn't feel right. Testing his suspicion, he poured soda over it. Instantly, the surface started to react, confirming that the egg was a fake. The real artifact had already been stolen. The moment the truth came out, the museum's alarms blared loudly. Red lights flashed, sirens screamed, and chaos broke out as visitors ran in all directions. Among the fleeing crowd was Nolan Booth himself. The second John's eyes landed on him, he knew this was the thief he'd been hunting. John took off after him without a second thought. Nolan, using his unmatched parkour skills, leapt and twisted his way over railings and display cases, leaving guards stumbling behind. John was relentless, managing to catch up and block him briefly, but Nolan was far too cunning. He misled John, took a daring leap into a narrow maintenance pipe, and slid out the other end to freedom. Still, John refused to quit. He chased Nolan out into the cobblestone streets of historic Rome, weaving through traffic and alleyways. But despite the FBI agent's persistence, Nolan's agility and street smarts allowed him to disappear into the city. 56 hours later, Nolan was in full celebration mode. One hand clutched a bottle of expensive alcohol, the other proudly holding the stolen egg. He felt invincible, convinced he was the smartest thief alive. But his moment of triumph was cut short when he returned to his hideout to find John already sitting inside, flanked by an entire arrest team. There was no escape. Nolan was captured on the spot. Confused about how John had tracked him down so quickly, Nolan demanded answers. John revealed that it wasn't his investigation alone. Bishop, the world's #1 most wanted thief, had tipped him off. While Nolan was ranked #2, he'd been desperate to take Bishop's spot for years. The rivalry ran deep. The egg was taken into Interpol custody. But during the operation, a shocking twist unfolded. An undercover operative swapped the genuine egg with a perfect replica. That operative? Bishop herself. The next day brought disaster for John. Evidence surfaced linking him to the thieves, a Swiss bank account under his name, loaded with $8 million. His reputation, built over years of service, was obliterated overnight. He was arrested and shipped off to a maximum security prison in the icy mountains of Russia. To make things worse, his cellmate was none other than Nolan Booth. With no other option, the two enemies realized they'd have to work together. In the freezing, brutal environment, Nolan slowly pieced together the truth. Their imprisonment was part of Bishop's plan. She wanted them out of her way so no one could interfere with her pursuit of the eggs. Nolan revealed the bigger picture. The eggs were more than just artifacts. They were part of an extraordinary deal. An Egyptian billionaire had promised $300 million to anyone who delivered all 3 golden eggs to him before his daughter's wedding. 2 eggs had been located, but the third remained a mystery. Nolan had been on the hunt for them long before John arrived, but Bishop's schemes had ruined his progress. It was now obvious. Bishop wanted all 3 eggs for herself. Soon after, guards escorted John and Nolan to the prison warden's office. To their shock, Bishop was waiting inside, disguised as a senior officer. Confident and stylish, she delivered her offer to Nolan. She already had 1 egg. She planned to steal the second, and if Nolan helped her find the third, he'd get 10% of the reward. Nolan laughed in her face and refused outright. Bishop didn't flinch. As she left, she threw one last remark over her shoulder. "I will always be 2 steps ahead of you. Understand?" John was furious. This could have been their way out. But he quickly convinced Nolan that if they combined forces, they could escape the prison and beat Bishop to the eggs. Nolan hesitated, then agreed, thinking that if Bishop was caught and he escaped, he'd finally be the world's most wanted thief. Their escape began in the prison dining hall. Nolan loudly announced that John was an FBI agent, enraging one of the biggest, meanest inmates. A violent brawl broke out, triggering chaos across the mess hall. Guards rushed in, struggling to contain the fight. Dragged outside afterward, John angrily told Nolan never to pull such a stunt again. But Nolan grinned and revealed the truth. During the chaos, he had stolen a keycard from a guard. Without it, their escape would be impossible. Later, Nolan opened up about his past. His father was a police officer who never praised him. Craving attention, Nolan figured out who police pay the most attention to: criminals. So he became one. The confession built a small, uneasy bond between them. They moved to phase 2 of the escape, crafting a makeshift bomb from soap, toothpaste, and nitric acid. The controlled blast sent the prison into total disorder. Using the chaos, they loosened a stone in the wall and squeezed through, scaling the icy exterior of the prison. At one point, Nolan slipped and nearly fell to his death, but John grabbed him in time. They reached a helicopter pad, where a guard, distracted by Putin's picture on his phone and Russian music, failed to notice them until it was too late. John knocked him out, and Nolan raced toward the helicopter. As John fought off another guard, a rocket was fired at the bridge he was crossing. The explosion almost killed him, but he managed to survive and sprint to safety. Nolan, instead of leaving him, unleashed the helicopter's minigun to suppress the guards, giving John the opening to leap aboard. Another missile came screaming toward them, but John opened the helicopter's opposite door, letting the missile fly straight through and detonate harmlessly in the mountains beyond. With the danger behind them, they escaped into the night sky. Meanwhile, Bishop was far away, calmly watching the chaos unfold on a monitor. From a hacked computer in London, she sent a tip to Interpol: John and Nolan had escaped. Smiling at her own cleverness, she began her next move. John and Nolan eventually landed and met Nolan's trusted old friend, Tambwe, who supplied them with a new plane. Nolan's sources revealed the location of the second egg. It was in the possession of a ruthless arms dealer in Spain. But stealing it wouldn't be easy. The dealer's estate was a fortress, dozens of armed guards spaced strategically, 90 security cameras, and the egg stored in a half-meter-thick titanium safe. Still, they prepared for the impossible, using a deepfake video and a risky plan to steal the dealer's phone and extract his password. After their preparations, the scene shifts to Spain, where the feared arms smuggler was throwing an extravagant party at his sprawling mansion. The air was filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of expensive glasses, while waiters weaved through the glittering crowd. John arrived looking every bit the wealthy socialite, tailored suit, confident posture, blending perfectly with the elite guests. Nolan, however, had slipped into the role of a waiter, moving silently between tables, offering drinks while his eyes scanned the room for their target. It wasn't long before John's gaze locked onto a familiar figure. Bishop was at the party too, her elegant dress shimmering under the chandeliers. She noticed him, smiled faintly, a smile that held both challenge and mystery, and then gracefully turned away, disappearing into the crowd before John could follow. Just then, the arms smuggler himself took the stage. Microphone in hand, he began a long, drawn-out speech about his success, basking in the crowd's attention. John seized the opportunity. With deliberate calm, he slipped behind the smuggler, his fingers working quickly to lift the man's phone from his pocket without anyone noticing. What they didn't know was that Interpol officer Agent Das was also present, quietly observing everything from the shadows. Her eyes were sharp, and she didn't miss a thing. Nolan, acting his part, walked over to John and deliberately tripped, spilling a glass of wine all over his clothes. Gasps came from nearby guests, but John stayed in character, scowling as Nolan apologized profusely. Using the incident as an excuse, they both slipped away toward the washroom to clean up. Inside the bathroom, the plan swung into action. They quickly hacked into the smuggler's phone, extracted the password they needed, and confirmed it worked. They knew they had only a 45-second window during the guard shift change, their only chance to reach the vault without being detected. Moving quickly through a restricted hallway, they arrived at the vault, a massive titanium door, intimidating and impenetrable to anyone without clearance. But their deepfake trick, impersonating the smuggler on his own phone, worked like a charm. The heavy locks clicked, and the door swung open. Inside, shelves and pedestals displayed priceless artifacts from around the world. But in the very center, bathed in a focused beam of light, stood the second golden egg. Their excitement was cut short by a sudden, piercing alarm. Red lights flashed, sirens wailed, and the heavy footsteps of guards echoed toward them. Standing in their path was Agent Das, her pistol aimed steadily at their heads. John reacted instantly, knocking her weapon aside, slamming the vault door shut to hold the guards back. But as they turned, they froze. Bishop was already inside the vault, having somehow beaten them there. Now it was a standoff, Bishop on one side, John and Nolan on the other. Without hesitation, a fierce fight erupted. The confined space became a blur of strikes, kicks, and counterattacks. John and Nolan tried to overwhelm Bishop together, but her speed and precision kept her a step ahead, her movements fluid and devastating. The fight came to an abrupt halt when the arms dealer himself entered the vault. His words stunned them. He had been working with Bishop the entire time. In seconds, the tables turned. John and Nolan were captured and knocked unconscious. When they woke the next day, they were in the smuggler's basement, hands bound tightly. The dealer's interrogation began immediately. He wanted the location of the third egg, and he wanted it now. Thinking fast, Nolan spun a lie, claiming the egg was hidden somewhere in Egypt. It was pure fiction, but it seemed to satisfy the dealer, at least temporarily. That's when Bishop made her move. Playing innocent, she poured the dealer a glass of champagne, one she had already laced with a powerful sedative. Toasting to future success, she handed it over. He drank without suspicion, and moments later, his body went limp, his breathing shallow. Bishop smirked, retrieved the second egg from the vault, and walked away, leaving John and Nolan still tied up, abandoned to face whatever came next. But fate turned unexpectedly. The smuggler regained consciousness sooner than expected, still groggy but enraged. In his fury, he began shooting wildly. One of the bullets grazed the ropes binding John and Nolan, setting them free. They took the opportunity and bolted, only to emerge into blinding daylight. As their eyes adjusted, they realized with horror that they had stumbled straight into a bull ring, surrounded by cheering spectators who mistook them for part of the show. The sound of hooves thundered behind them. A massive, furious bull charged forward, its horns gleaming. Nolan panicked and, without thinking, waved his arms like a matador, sending the crowd into a frenzy. John barely dodged the bull with a desperate roll, while Nolan scrambled up the arena wall, gasping for air. Somehow, both managed to escape into the narrow, twisting streets of the city. That night, when they finally found a quiet place, John did something he'd never done before. He shared a piece of his past. His father, he revealed, had been a famous thief. One day, without warning, he abandoned John, leaving a scar that never healed. That betrayal fueled John's hatred for criminals and drove him to join law enforcement. Nolan listened silently. When John finished, he revealed a secret of his own. He knew where the third egg was. He told the story. After World War II, a German officer had fled to Argentina with a suitcase of treasure and a wristwatch. Hidden inside the watch was a code revealing the egg's location. Years later, Nolan's father, an expert treasure hunter, discovered the watch and followed the clues to a forgotten Nazi bunker deep in the jungles of Argentina. Nolan had spent years piecing the story together, and now he had the final clue. Without wasting time, they set off. Their journey through the jungle was grueling. Swamps, thick vines, and treacherous cliffs. Finally, they found it, a rusting steel door in the middle of the overgrowth. The moment they stepped inside, old lights flickered on, illuminating a vast underground chamber frozen in time. Beyond the final barrier, they found the treasure, relics of the Nazi era stacked high, gold glittering in the dim light. And there it was, Cleopatra's third golden egg. Their joy was short-lived. Bishop appeared in the doorway, her presence as calm and unnerving as ever. Moments later, Agent Das stormed in with a fully armed SWAT team. The bunker erupted in chaos, bullets ricocheting, crates shattering, shouts echoing. In the mayhem, John, Nolan, and Bishop leapt into an old military vehicle, speeding out through a hidden exit. But the road ended abruptly at the edge of a towering waterfall. With no time to stop, the vehicle plunged over the edge, smashing into the river below. When Nolan surfaced, coughing and gasping, he still had the egg clutched tightly. But when he realized John was missing, he dropped it and dove back into search. John, however, was already on shore. That's when the truth came crashing down. John and Bishop had been partners from the very beginning. They weren't enemies at all. They were lovers and accomplices, using Nolan the entire time to find the third egg. Every twist, every setup had been part of their plan. Nolan, bound to a tree, could only watch as the two of them disappeared into the jungle with all three eggs. Rage burned in his eyes. He swore he'd get even. Meanwhile, in Egypt, a grand celebration was underway in a magnificent palace. The billionaire's daughter was getting married, and the highlight of the event was the public presentation of all three eggs together for the first time. The eggs were carried out with regal ceremony, but just as the billionaire basked in the applause, Agent Das and her Interpol team smashed through the palace doors in a sudden raid. Armed agents swarmed the hall, arresting the billionaire, his associates, and even the bride. The guests scattered in panic as the priceless eggs were seized. From a hidden vantage point, John and Bishop watched with quiet satisfaction. They had already secured their $300 million long before this raid. As chaos unfolded, they slipped away unnoticed. 6 months later, the turquoise waters of the Italian coast sparkled under the sun. A luxury yacht drifted lazily, and on its deck, John and Bishop enjoyed their riches in peace. Until a familiar figure climbed aboard, Nolan Booth. Wearing a triumphant smile, he walked straight up to them, picked up a tablet, and revealed his trump card. He had tracked every one of their offshore accounts and sent the information directly to Interpol. In seconds, John and Bishop's faces fell. Their accounts were frozen. Every cent was gone. Nolan grinned. "Scam the scammers," he said with pride. But he didn't linger on his victory. Instead, he leaned in and pitched an idea, an enormous, daring heist that he couldn't pull off without them. John immediately refused, but Bishop, ever the realist, knew they were broke. And broke thieves have no choice. Where this next job will take them, that, the world will only learn when the next movie is released.